Who, Epstein was a dandy? I guess you could call him a dandy. Didn't real? Yeah, he kind of was. In a time where that shit was not acceptable. He had loving Jewish parents like that. I don't think my parents would have. My mother would have. I don't. Yeah, most parents, especially in that time, you're talking the 50s and 60s. But he was a beautiful guy, like Lennon said. He was beautiful through and throughout. I wish we had a. We came from the. We came from the ultimate gutter. There was the only Epstein, the only equivalent to Epstein were sex offenders and broke pissy bums. Epstein was a fucking genius. He was more than just a dandy. He knew how to he knew how to play himself at home. Well, I mean, I got a pink dining room, but Epstein's house, he painted it in femme colors, female colors. But he was also really self conscious and sharp dressed man, though, too. A fucking genius. I wish we had an Epstein. Epstein knew, you got people to this day that wear spiked, I think even Dominic wore one, spiked guitar straps. In 1962, Lennon wearing a spiked guitar strap was indi- was indicative of bondage and S&M. They wore tight leathers like they were like they was James Dean, like they were the wild ones and shit. And they played incredibly, but they were so fucking hard edge, sharp Italian boots, all dressed in leather. Epstein came along after Astrid gave him a haircut after Stu Sutcliffe. Epstein came along and said, "This will never sell. This will never fucking sell. Let's put you in some nice suits, and you can become nice boys." And slowly it started to work. They already had a bad reputation they had to shake down. The Beatles were, I always forget this, there was probably only 10 or 15 record labels in England at the time. The Beatles were rejected from all of them for whatever reason. Until finally Epstein and Lennon was getting pissed with him. Lennon's like, "Yo, dude, we cut our hair, we put on these suits, get us a fucking record deal, and get us one now. You're a fucking failure." He took it over to the comedy division after a failed deck audition at EMI. Got George Martin here, and they had to do that. They had to play song for an audition and for other purposes. Had to play like Jerry and the Pacemakers songs, who were okay, but they weren't the visceral Beatles. Lennon and McCartney were like, "Oh, please, man, I'm not doing How Do You Do It. If we get seen doing that song, they're gonna laugh at us." Sure enough, it did okay. Then comes Love Me Do, which did fairly well. It showed promise. And pretty much Epstein and George Martin said to him, you know, now's the time. If you're going to write a hit, go ahead and do it. Now would be the time. They had help from George Martin. He was a great producer. Lennon comes up with Please, Please Me. And it was in a typical Lennon fashion. It was fast. It was chaotic. They said to him, why don't we slow it down? Use your harmonica, and we'll see what happens. At the end of the session, Martin had such a trained ear for what was a hit and what wasn't. The tape stops, and he says to him, "Gentlemen, This may be your very first number one. And I don't know if they believe that, but sure enough, it was. Then they hit so fucking hard. They had three number ones on the chart at once. It Please Please Me, I Want to Hold Your Hand, She Loves You, As Love Me Do trailed off at the bottom. Doesn't matter. I mean, I think it helped them that Epstein was so flamboyant. He was as posh and as British as you can be, so he appealed to all these people. He was a well spoken gentleman, you know. That Cobain ass is mine. I love that girl. I didn't mean to write that on Nicholas Shrek's thing, though. I don't know who Nick's with. I love Nick like a best friend. He's great. He's been with me night after night on here. I don't know who Shrek is with. He better not be with the green dildos. But we need some McCartney, and I need some love and affection. I need to wrap my hands around the golden goddess and put my tongue in her ear, like I said, like Aeon Flux. French kiss that, and my fingers in his pants as we fly to some foreign land. That's my girl. That's my girl. She is divine. Yeah, matter of fact, he got beat up a couple times too. I mean, being gay back then was not like it is now. I mean, all these gay people have special rights and shit. It's like cool to be gay now. It is. You look at gay people, you're like, oh, damn, I wish I was gay. I wish I could do what they do. Back then, you'd go to jail. It was illegal being gay. It was illegal. Can you imagine that? You got beat up many times in public bathhouses or public bathrooms because that's where the gay people used to meet. Even happened to George Michael too. You know, um, he got beat up a couple times. They beat up Epstein. He tried his best to keep it a secret, but no, it's not right. I mean, his sexual has little to do with it, other than the way that he had that panache, that like gay men do often. They have that flair for style. They have that missing element that might take your band and do something special with it. Yeah, they would. They had what they have, Alan Klein, and everybody used to talk shit about the Beatles. They used to, they have problems going over to Germany. They would say, do not send the fucking Beatles back here again. They're fuck ups. They're gonna fuck everything all up. They had a bad reputation, mostly because they were probably so fucking good, but they were unruly and you know Lennon was punk rock before punk was even a thing. Lennon come out on stage with a toilet seat around his neck. They'd be on stage drinking, smoking cigarettes, talking. Epstein came and said, "None of this, no more of this. You guys gotta straighten up. You gotta bow at the end. Act like you give a fuck." And before you know it, they're playing the Royal Command performance. For those of you in the cheaper seats, clap your hands. And the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewelry, that's a long way. That's a long way from living in a German porno house and playing the Kaiser Keller all the way to a Royal Command performance. Epstein was a big part of that. You could see the Beatles too after Epstein accidentally overdosed. They, the, where maybe they were on their way to India, but you could see them on film. It looks like they're having a bad LSD trip. They didn't know what the fuck they were gonna do. I'd be terrified too. I'd be like, "What are we gonna do?" But as it turned out, they did well there. You know, Epstein was also upset about that too. He felt like they didn't need him anymore, which was sort of the case because the hard work had been done. Now it doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. It doesn't. It's it doesn't really. Not that it matters, but it doesn't. It wasn't as dangerous as it was then. You'll go to jail for being gay. You'll get beat the fuck up. There was guys that would pose to be gay just to beat you the fuck up. When that happened to him, he supposedly he was avoiding their calls. He was embarrassed. He didn't want them to see what had happened to him, which is sad. He shouldn't have to be embarrassed, but it is embarrassing. Epstein was a good part of that. He was a great fucking manager. If we only had an Epstein, but it wasn't going to happen. These little rich kids out there were born into wealth, and I know somebody, and my dad's in the industry. They didn't do what the Beatles did. They didn't have to go to fucking Canada or go to, or go to Brazil. And they didn't. It's total cheese and fucking chalk. People like to compare them during conversations, but that's some embarrassing American shit. After the Beatles, and they have no respect for the Beatles. I've heard them make comments about Beatles, and the only comment I heard was the one fat gay Kobasi guy, the drummer there, said whenever Ringo plays, it sounds like a drunk walking up a set of stairs. And it was supposed to be a television show about Ringo, and I'm like, are you fucking brain damn? Ringo was the most creative drummer to ever play at rock and roll. I've never heard you break up a meter like that. You ain't a you ain't Ringo Starr. You're not even Paul. I mean, you ain't even Paul on drums. Paul knew how to break up meters when he was playing drums. You ain't even Paul McCartney. Just to say that about Ringo made me violently nauseous. If I had a gun, I would have shot the TV. Because I'm just sitting there. It was supposed to be a show about Ringo, and there's a Trey douchebag who his only comment about Ringo is it sounded like a drunk making his way up a set of stairs. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Who the fuck do you fucking think you are? No, you ain't Ringo. I mean that shows you the level of delusion you're dealing with there.